So hello everyone and welcome to this roundtable as part of WTiN's Innovate Textile and Apparel virtual trade show. I'm Otis Robinson, the assistant editor on the digitalisation team at WTiN, and I'll be moderating today's roundtable session titled Implementing a Smart Factory. The smart factory is probably one of the most commonly talked about developments to come out of Industry 4.0 conversation at the moment, primarily because it really represents a new form of manufacturing, one that's responsive, adaptive, automated and connected, and really utilises the data that comes out of a manufacturing setting to optimise and improve itself. Overall, the smart factory is thought to characterise the Industry 4.0 movement, and a lot of companies are really keen to adopt its concept. But before I get ahead of myself, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Firstly, we have Julian Stephan, Associate Partner at Bain, a global consultancy that helps to drive innovative change in industry. Next, we have Yves Simon-Gloy, Senior Consultant at Gezi, a leader of strategic development in the textile industry. Next, we have Clive Hickman, CEO of the Manufacturing Technology Centre, which develops and provides innovative manufacturing processes and technologies with industry and academia. And finally, we have Jochen Adler, Chief Technology Officer at Oerlikon, an engineering and technology group headquartered in Switzerland. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. Overall, our speakers are really the kind of leading experts in the field of smart factories and are definitely the ones we need to be looking to for insight. So now that our introductions are out of the way, I guess we can get to the good bit, which, I mean, to begin, maybe for those who are new to the concept, could we all kind of explain a little bit about the concept of the smart factory and the ways that it intends to better manufacturing? Could I maybe start with you, Clive?
Yeah, fine. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess for me, the concept is a factory that works without any human intervention. It makes use of advanced data systems, AI, automation, and all of those advanced technologies. We also create a digital representation of the factory, which we call the digital twin. And we can use that digital twin to prove the process before we create the factory. And then we design the factory around the process rather than try to adapt the process to fit the factory. And its ultimate state, I guess, there's no human intervention other than via the digital twin. And in theory, the factory could operate with the light switched off. And that would be my brief summary of what I mean by the technology.
Fantastic. Yves, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. Also, first of all, welcome to everyone from my side. Now we started already jumping into discussions because smart factory. I mean, that's already smart factory. These are large words. If you talk about smart, Otis, you also mentioned Industry 4.0. Large project on all these upcoming future ways of designing production. It's coming from the German government. Maybe I have the chance to talk about this later on because there might be a little bit of misunderstanding, but that's a large project. And within Industry 4.0, of course, we are also talking about smart factory. And as you said already before, Cliff, it's about data. Because we see all these developments in sensor technology, in communication technology, internet, so on and so on. So there's a chance to get more data out of your products, out of the production, out of the environment of the production, out of the factory. And then the question is, and then it's becoming smart. It's, okay, now I've got the data. What can I do with the data in order? And that's always the aim. I mean, I did 15 years of science research at production technology. From a production point of view, how can you improve the efficiency of your production by using data? And that means it must maybe it's not the most smartest solution that you need, but it must be the most efficient solution. Making production better, whatever better means, more output, less waste. Maybe you need less space, maybe, and not maybe, but always be economic feasible. And then the question is, are Are there people working in the factory of the future? You have always to look at greenfield, brownfield solutions, of course. And in my opinion, I mean, also looking at the way textiles are produced in Germany, of course, there will be human-machine interaction. We need our brain power. We need experienced workers in our textile factories. And then the question is, how can you support them? How can you give them assistance? How can they interact with the production, with the product? And designing a factory that's aiming at these things, I think that's going into the direction of a smart factory.
Fantastic. And Julianne, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, a lot was already mentioned, but I think for me, really, with a lot of my experience in discrete manufacturing environments, I fully agree that it will also be very critical to enable the humans in the plant, right? So for me, a smart factory is not only about implementing a bunch of different emerging, very exciting technologies, but it's also really about identifying new ways of working, right? How do we enable the folks on the shop floor to know better what's going on in the plant, to anticipate issues, but also to proactively address them then. And like the way I like to think about smart factory is it can look very different for each company, right? Every company has to find their own version of a smart factory that's the right answer for their specific business problems. But usually the dimensions I look at when I think about use cases and technologies to implement, it's really around like the old 4Ms in lean, right? Like it's about machines, material, method or flow, and then as well the manpower and labor in the factory. So that's kind of one of the thought frameworks that I like to use thinking about smart factory.
Fantastic. And finally, Jochen.
I very much like the latest statements. Technology is never a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to being smart or applying these new technologies to the textile business. For me, it is as simple as that. Production has to become transparent and traceable. And what was domain knowledge for a few experienced experts and mostly paper-based in the textile industry can hardly survive in a complex environment of huge scale. Transparency, fast response, traceability matter because we all have to keep in mind that Oerlikon machines are continuous in continuous production. Imagine the CPs running more than 1,000 tons a day just recently. The primary objective of Oerlikon as a supplier of machine and technology when creating smart factories is mainly to reduce waste from quality downgrade. We achieve that by connecting with the whole machinery in the plant, whatever that means, including all third-party utilities, for instance. Our customers, and that's in common for the entire industry 4.0, can react faster to quality deviation because they simply know that quality deviates, which is not a given thing as of today. Consequently, production, resource, maintenance planning becomes easier, and Oerlikon Smart Factories aims at supporting transparency for fast decision-making and overall efficiency. And as I said in the beginning, it is as simple as that, not more, but as well not less.
Fantastic. And I mean, kind of diving in even further, could I ask each of you to kind of briefly explain what your companies do and how they're involved with the implementation of smart factories? Could I start with you, Julianne?
Yeah, sure. So as consultants, we usually come in pretty early in the process. So what's very common is that we work with executives who heard a lot about Industry 4.0 Smart Factory and are truly trying to figure out what does that mean for their company and how should they go ahead with starting on that journey. So we help them with formulating the strategy, usually thinking about two lenses. We like to call it like present forward or future back. So present forward, very practically, what are things that can help me already today, tomorrow, to improve my efficiency, my productivity in the plants, but then also thinking about the future, right? Like with the development that we're seeing with a lot of the technologies that are exponentially progressing, what does that mean for my industry, for my company, and how do I need to change and what capabilities do I need to build to be successful also 10, 15 years from now? And then once we've figured out what we want to achieve with this initiative, we're helping formulate the roadmap, narrowing down specific use cases and technologies and helping to assemble the technology ecosystem as well for the specific company.
Fantastic. And Johan, how about you?
Yeah, as mentioned before, textile machinery, we are not the fancy guys. But with the integration of automation concepts into our product portfolio 2 to 3 years ago, we decided to build our own digital infrastructure to cope with the increasingly demanding environment of our customers. We have developed our own concept of an on-premise digital platform, first of all, to host all our software applications. This ensures that there won't be any disruption in the service delivered by Oerlikon, coming along with a kind of integrated software suite. In parallel, we run multiple R&D projects, be it in-house or be it supported by universities or partners that aim at enhancing Oerlikon machine efficiency. We continue to invest and upgrade the customer software applications. Yves was already talking about brownfield that already existed before digitalization became hip at all, and are migrating these older technologies to new and modern technology frameworks. And internally, we reorganized our departments to adapt our structure to the way of software development works best. We realized that the traditional machine business and the software business, even related to one another, we require different working environments, different profiles, different approaches, and different languages in both R&D and sales.
Fantastic. And Yves, how about you?
Yeah, so Gerdzi, I'm working for Gerdzi, is serving the textile industry since 90 years. 90 years of worldwide service to the textile industry. And of course, digitalization right now, it's a hot topic. Also, as Jochen mentioned before, it was a hot topic also 10 or 20 years ago. Simsalabim, I think these SIM projects. Well, of course, when our clients are addressing us, what should we do? That's often a question, what should we do? Of course, we are looking at the strategic process. Where are our customers standing right now? Where can they go? And then you have to keep in mind, of course, the textile process chain. That's a long chain. I mean, Oerlikon machines, very nice machines, filament production, non-wovens production, state of the art and beyond. That's something totally different than confectioning clothing, sewing processes or weaving machine. So, of course, having an overview on this whole textile process chain and understanding also what kind of technology developments are there, what can be useful, is also something where we help our clients. So looking at production, but then, you know, digitalization, it's in production, but it's also keeping a more and more role in, you know, like processes, internal processes in your business. We are looking at sales. What are the opportunities of digitalization in sales? We are involved in projects, you know, why do we need to send around samples of our textiles to identify a white collar? How can digital solutions look there? Also, then the question is, if you go further, of course, we support our customers in designing a whole factory, in setting up supply chains, in having digitalization along the supply chain. How can you manage that? We are looking at digitalization solutions in the design of your products. So it's a huge scope, worldwide scope. And I must admit, of course, if you look worldwide, in the US, there are other topics right now being important than maybe in Central Europe or in Asia and India. So it's very interesting to see also what is the customer asking, what is it demanding. And then it's also something that's really important. In general, we are not looking at the solution on our own. I'm convinced, we are convinced that the best solution for our customers, you need a set of partners, you need the right partners, a technology supplier, maybe someone who's capable in the building of competence. So in general, at the end, you have a consortia from 3 to 4 companies, maybe bringing the best to our customers. And that's really a good way forward to keep things going.
Great. And Clive, could you tell me a little bit about kind of how you work with the implementation of smart factories?
So MTC is a manufacturing technology organisation. We're a research and technology company, so all of our work is in research and development, and predominantly we're focused on manufacturing process, and so development of a smart factory is really key to our business. And I would say about 40% of everything that we do at MTC these days is about digital manufacturing and how we can use data and technology to help to improve the manufacturing process, both for productivity, for quality, and also for serviceability.
Fantastic. Now, kind of moving on, as I'm sure you're all aware, when we talk about smart factories, there are a lot of misconceptions. I think one of the main ones that I've come across is that the smart factory concept is a faraway concept. So could we kind of explore what are some of the most common that you encounter when consulting or when working on these projects? Yves, could we start with you?
Yeah, but I have to check. Did I understand your question right? So can you please repeat? I didn't get it. Sorry.
Yeah, just what are some of the common misconceptions that you encounter when working on?
Okay. Yeah. That's that was already into during my introduction. So this Industry 4.0. I've been often asked what's Industry 4.0, and it's very simple. It's a project by the German government. In Germany we do have something called high-tech strategy. I think it's right now the second phase of this strategy. It's designed by the German government with support of something called Wissenschaftsrat, where very well-known, famous scientists consult the German government. And they developed this concept of Industry 4.0, looking at, okay, where are the strengths, weakness, risks, and opportunities of the German industry? And there are leading publications. I think it's done by Akatech, the German Academia of Technic Science, who came up with a very precise and very good description of what Industry 4.0, Industry 4.0 is about. And most of the things that we are right now looking at and implementing and so on are very well described there. And I mean, giving this background and explaining also to our customers, also the question, why is it 4.0? When we started to do that at the university, in the German exam system, you pass the exam with 4. Yeah. With 5 you didn't pass. So we said, okay, they could not call it 5.0 because it doesn't make sense. But of course there's also a story behind this 4.0, and it's simply the fourth industrial revolution in industries that was described there. And now with this, I think it's 9 years back, they started describing this concept, implementing that, and with everything, you've got the hype. Then you've got a lot of things that you need to figure out. You got people working against that. And then, like this Gartner hype cycle, you come to a plateau of consistency. And that's the same with all these Industry 4.0 concepts. And I must admit, from a marketing point of view, I strongly believe that was a very good concept. Maybe Earlikon, Mr. Adler can better explain on how the world is also looking at that and what are the Germans doing again in this concept. But, that's something that you need to explain. And then you can go again to smart factory. And as I said, the description of the smart factory, you have to think about what is smart, maybe what is stupid. Are we doing things stupidly right now? That's very hard to describe. And I always prefer to go for this Industry 4.0 because it's, the story and the content, it's simply much more reliable. It's better. It's giving you a clear direction on how to do things in your business, in your industry. And that's something that I occur often, that we need to explain. It's fun to explain, but then implementing, we will talk afterward. That's a different story.
Fantastic. And Johan, would you like to add? Would you like to follow from that?
Yeah, First of all, I fully agree with Yves. It's a great marketing story. We have to start, especially when we go along the customer journey, we have to demystify this myth of Industry 4.0. And when we look into the textile business, for example, in India, in Bangladesh, or somewhere else, we are talking about Industry 2.0 or 3.0. It's a question of automation, and as I mentioned, in most of the cases, it's still somehow paper-based. But coming back to the misconceptions, and this might be the very first one, but a second is that we usually encounter that customers think that a machinery company like ours is not even competent in software or digitization. I try to avoid this phrase of Industry 4.0. It is unfortunately what leads our customers to going with local software companies, or sometimes the very big players like a Sinopec, Alibaba, SAP, be it a Siemens, Lenovo, that are not knowledgeable of our machines and of the processes and of the workflows. And coming back to Simon's statement, Oerlikon is very early in the textile value chain, so we have to understand what can be the benefit for others in a kind of digital ecosphere. What can we do with a digital fingerprint, with a digital DNA of a melt, of a yarn, of a bobbin when it comes to weaving, looming, warping, and later on to the big brands on the shelf. And when we look into the EU Green Deal, what is a very hot topic right now, how to trace it back. How to deal with export compliance and the legal requirements. Is it valid for in future for blockchain to ensure that a recycled bottle is really a recycled bottle and not something which was cheated? And another misconception, and I would like to intensely discuss with Clive, is that a smart factory is a dark factory in which machines auto adjust without any human interaction. I don't believe so. As appealing as it sounds, this misconception would actually create dangerous manufacturing environments in the field of textile. A shop floor can be automated, but given the fact that we are in a pretty complex environment with chemical reactions, high pressures, temperatures, speeds, AGVs, material handling systems, an unmanned plant, for me personally, is unrealistic as of today. So these are the big misunderstandings I do see, especially when approaching customers, be it as a consultant or be it as a machine supplier, where we have to start at much lower level and have to understand customer needs and how they run their operation and how they do their daily work and workflows.
Fantastic. And Clive, I think we've stumbled on a bit of controversy there. So what would you like to...
That's really good. I guess for me, I'd like to sort of try and take the myth out of Industry 4.0, first of all, because for me, there's lots of things that have been written, some really turgid tomes on 4.0. And I think it's a fairly simple concept. It's a concept about being able to make a bespoke part in the same time scale, at the same price point, and with the same quality that you'd be able to make a mass-produced part. And the other misconception that we talked about, that you suggested about the smart factory being a faraway concept, I'm not convinced it's a faraway concept. At NTC, we already have smart factories working. We've got a concept that we call factory in a box. So we create a factory that sits within a module, and we run that factory creating a particular component. A typical one is cryogenic pipes that we make fully automated. Now, we don't turn the lights off because we like to see what's happening in that factory. But the reality is that we have and the only human intervention is the input to the process at the beginning by putting the raw material into the factory, and then at the far end taking the finished component into the dispatch of that. So it's not that far away. It's really important because it gives us some real added benefits that maybe we haven't realized before when we're trying to compete with low-cost countries. So if we can create a factory, there is a fully automated factory that can be transportable, and we pick it up and we ship it to a particular location. We can operate the factory in that location, but we're taking the orders for product here back at home. We're invoicing back home, and we're repatriating profits back home. So to me, that is not a faraway concept. It's something that we're already dealing with. And when you take that further and you think about some of the disasters that are happening around the world, fires, floods, etc. If we have a disaster where the human life is in danger, if we can ship one of those factories into their area and make things like blood plasma in a factory that allows us to help the clinicians local to the point of problem, of disaster, then all of a sudden it's game-changing for the world and game-changing for society.
Fantastic. And Julianne, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, Industry 4.0 smart factory, right? Like what Clive just described, right, is a very exciting concept with lots of opportunities. But I think at the same time, that can be very intimidating for companies as well, right? So one of the very common misconceptions that I come across is, oh, this is just something for the big guys, right? The big corporations that have lots of money because smart factory is expensive. And I don't think that's true, right? Like there are so many things you can do on a pretty much shoestring budget, right? If you find a group of very interested and exciting, for example, manufacturing engineers, or like just folks in the shop floor that are like usually working on the processes and the continuous improvement, and you can enable them with some of the more lightweight tools and analytics, and you can already, get started on the journey at least, and also get some good benefit for your enterprise. So I know in the textile value chain, right, we also have a lot of smaller, medium-sized companies that maybe don't have a big IT organization and so on. So I think the message here is just like, don't feel it's not applicable to you, right? There are things and elements and certain technologies and use cases that you can actually implement fairly quickly and with the skills and the competences that you have today. So.
Fantastic.
And maybe just another perspective, because I know you have a lot of global audience as well, and Eve started out with Industry 4.0, and I just wanted to add a little bit from my experience. So I actually moved from Germany to the US in 2015, and when I moved there, nobody really knew Industry 4.0. If they knew it, they thought it was a German government initiative purely, and it was only used for that. But I feel like the last 2-3 years, it actually kind of became the tagline for the digital industrial and the industrialization. So I think we kind of stole the term here in the US a little bit. So we like it too.
Fantastic. And I think an essential and kind of unavoidable talking point across industries at the minute is the COVID-19 pandemic. Traditionally, digitalisation has been a slow process within manufacturing, arguably. And actually, a survey conducted by the manufacturer in 2019 showed that over 50% of companies actually have no plans to implement smart factory technologies. But obviously, many believe now the pandemic will actually encourage industry-wide adoption of digital tools and big data. So why do you think that these tools and the smart factory in general have suddenly become so appealing during this time? Julianne, would you like to start?
Sure, I can get started. I mean, I think one of the key benefits is that with COVID, everyone recognized that you need to get a lot more visibility into your operations, be it your manufacturing, but also your supply chain overall, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to achieve the resiliency and the flexibility to react basically on new challenges and disruptions that come at you. So I think Industry 4.0, everyone kind of sees the need now for a lot of these innovations and to make progress so that they are better equipped for the next crisis. But then at the same time, I think these digital solutions that we have today can also be part of the solution for manufacturers to be able to restart production quickly after shutdown, and to also kind of be in compliance with all the infection protection regulations, and be able to automate and kind of decouple location and where the work is being created. And I think a lot of these tools are very valuable for that, and help manufacturers to actually get up to speed quickly again after shutdown by implementing them. And that's what also fueled a lot of the implementation, at least in the operations that I've seen.
Fantastic. And Johan, would you like to add?
Yeah, well, COVID-19 and especially confinement highlighted that whenever possible, the only way to keep working is via information technology. The entire remote communication, remote access to machines, to systems for supervision, or simply video calls enabled continued collaboration. In other words, what seemed to be impossible, such as remote collaboration, became a necessity meanwhile, which opened a lot of people's eyes and made technology appealing. And yeah, I like the discussion with Clive, and I have to confess, partially I agree, but the textile, when you look into plants that are almost, I don't know, 30, 40 football fields at size, a factory in a box is still a kind of dreamland. But of course, the tendency to go into integrated automation is essential. And even if I would state a totally unmanned factory is somehow unrealistic, or at least 10 to 20 years far, and any machine, however performant, can fail of malfunction. Operators, shift managers, engineers will always be useful and needed, but digital solutions provide a complete new dimension of assistance for operational excellence. And I used to call it value add beyond hardware. So COVID-19 has been an accelerator, a driver also in the customer landscape to get more robust, to implement more robust processes, to get better performances, quicker startup times. And this way of communicating and providing digital services will be a key element in future. And we just did it. We started up remotely. We did a lot of troubleshooting remotely, and customers highly appreciated the help under such circumstances.
Fantastic. And Clive, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think that a lot of companies have already started to adopt a lot of the smart factory principles, and probably don't realize that they're smart factory principles. And I think that what we're seeing is that as actuators and sensors become much more readily available and get adopted for all sorts of processes, the sort of things that Jochen was talking about, we're already seeing that move towards the smart factory, not the complete solution that we talked about earlier, but that first step on a journey. And I think that we will see some fast movers, some first movers, who will move much quicker towards the processes and the adoption of full smart factory. And we'll see other industries and other sectors that are slower to adopt and will catch up and follow on. I think food processing is going to be, without a doubt, the very first areas that we see the fully functional smart factories, and we're already moving a long way towards that right now. And other areas will take more time to do that, and particularly where there's a lot of legacy investment in their existing systems, it's very, very difficult to throw that legacy system away and make a new investment. So it will be progressive over time, but we're already starting to see them move towards it.
Fantastic. And Yves, would you like to finish off?
Yeah, so the question is, why are we looking at more digitalization tools since the pandemic? And as Jochen said already, there's a simple must because during the lockdown we are not capable to travel. Of course, remote technologies and things like that were investigated. That's one fact. The other thing that I'm really sad that I have to say that, is that some of our customers simply do have more time because business is going down, especially for some producers in Germany and in Europe. And they say, okay, we need to do something. They had digitalization always on their list, but because of daily business, oh no, we have to produce, we have to scale our production, a new customer, everything is fine. I don't need digitalization right now. And now the pressure is getting more and more. Okay, what can we do? And of course, that's also a driver for digitalization. Not only the opportunities, but also the risk of losing the game is bringing people to the field and looking on, okay, how can digitalization help me at the moment?
Fantastic. And now, kind of as we've already kind of brushed upon, a couple of key characteristics of the smart factory do include higher levels of communication, heavy automation usage, and kind of heavily networked, interoperable manufacturing environments. And as Clive just said, this can be quite a big jump for those rooted in tradition or those that use legacy equipment in their processes, and that may find it kind of difficult to get data from these processes. Cost is obviously another huge major concern. So I'm wondering, how can the transformation process be made easier for those kind of willing to change? Julianne, would you like to start, please?
Yeah, what I've seen work pretty well in the past was kind of a two-prong approach between top-down and bottom-up, right? Like what I said before already, like usually executives are very surprised when they start looking for like digital initiatives and see how much has actually already been done bottom-up, grassroots in the factories with like the resources that they have. So I think, first of all, it's important to understand what kind of innovation has already been started, right? And who are the people that are really excited about the change, are educating themselves, already understand kind of the vision and the mission, and then enable them, right? And help these guys to make more progress and go faster with their initiatives. So I think that's usually something where you can get good tractions and you develop some good case studies that help to also excite the rest of the organization and maybe get the buy-in from some of the skeptics. But then on the other hand, I think it's also important to sort through the noise, right? There's so much going on, so many different technologies you can tap into, so many different partners, so many on the software side, on the hardware side, and the lines are blurring more and more, that it's really hard for people to focus their resources, right? Because you don't want to get too thin spread and you don't want to get kind of lost in like a million different initiatives. So I think it's really important at the beginning to think about, what do I actually want to do? How does my smart factory look like? And then that helps you to reduce a lot of the complexity, and you can be more targeted about answering the questions: who are the right partners that I need? What are the maybe capabilities that I'm missing today? And where do I need to upskill my organization? And then kind of develop this portfolio approach of several use cases to move forward with that can help you. And some of them will be more ambitious, and some of them will be fairly tactical and more incremental, and you will get a good mix and can get traction.
Fantastic. And Yves, would you like to add?
Yeah, so Otis, you said something very important. Willing to change. So organizations that are willing to change, of course, that's the first step. And then the question is, okay, how can this transformation, this process, become more visible? So I think so best practice examples, of course, always work from the textile industries or from other industries. So there needs to be an understanding of the tools. How do they work? For example, sensor, and we talked about sensor technologies. It's good to demonstrate, okay, these are available sensors. You can measure this and this. That's the way how you implement the sensor. So people can really see and feel, okay, that's not, rocket science, I can do that. So that's, of course, very much important. But, of course, what's also very, very important, maybe even more important than the tool itself, is, of course, what does it bring? So looking at the facts and figures, because at the end there is someone or a board that has to decide, and they need the right information, and at the end also the economical feasibility of what's happening. The simple question I always get is, Mr. Gloy, why should I implement that? For this money, I can buy 3 new weaving machines, I can produce more. So looking at the cost calculation, how can you really raise the efficiency? What's the return on invest? Is it really below 6 months? And so on and so on. That's something. So showing it's working, it's easy to implement. These are the tools. On the other hand, showing that's the benefit of it. And it's not something that it's calculated, it's demonstrated. I took a watch, I saw, okay, the process will be 15 seconds shorter and you will save so much money using these tools. That's also very much important to have these who are willing to change also having the right way.
Fantastic. And Clive, would you like to add from that?
Yeah, I think it comes, adding on to all the things that people have said. To me, there needs to be a compelling reason to change. If that compelling reason to change isn't there, the companies will stick with what they know. We're not a creature that likes change, and we avoid change wherever we can. But unfortunately, I think it's one of those things that we're going to see more of, particularly as we move through COVID. And it was Darwin who said, it isn't the survival of the fittest or the survival of the strongest. It's the survival of those most able to adapt to change. And I think that's something that we need to think about very seriously and create that compelling reason to make the change.
Fantastic. And finally, Jochen.
Yeah, I can fully underline what was said. And not the biggest will win, but the fastest. And first of all, we should celebrate all the managers and experts who are willing to change and get involved into this world of smart factories. My experience is that they sooner or later discover that it's really insightful, if not fun at the end. And as mentioned, we had to transform the organization of our software departments and integrated the absolute necessity to accompany our customers in this journey, to really understand their needs, to avoid by all means this kind of German over-engineering, sorry to say that, and unveil what makes sense in their specific case. And this comes along with new methodology like customer journey, design thinking, being more agile, and so on and so forth, which has also been part of the transformation for us as a machine supplier, but also in the field of the customer, where we usually face very traditional organizations, if you want to say so. And according to these need findings, software applications are created and adapted according to the situation in a specific plant. And it's a two-way communication of digital R&D somehow and our customers. And especially on the specific topic of retrofit or legacy equipment, we have several R&D projects going on to cater to brownfield projects that otherwise would require a high level of unaffordable customization. At the end, it means we are also conscious that smart factory is both, as mentioned before, it's a use case and it has to be a business case at the end of the day.
Fantastic. And I feel like we've kind of just touched upon these a little bit. I wondered, what are some of the barriers to kind of implementing a smart factory and how can these be overcome? So Yves, would you like to start?
Yeah, so first of all, since we talked about automation, and there are something what we call 4 ironies of automation. So the first irony is that the human is automated because in the design of the process, the human factor is seen as the one who is producing errors. But at the end, these are humans who are designing also the automation processes. So that's something that needs to be overcome. At the end, you can automate a lot of processes, but the most complex processes are then still conducted by humans in the factories. So that's also something that needs to keep in mind. Then also in automation, the third irony is that besides the fact that there might be in some industries already factories without humans, in other they are developing. At the end, there are still humans that do control, that supervise all these processes. That's also still something that you have to keep in mind. And the most sophisticated automation system needs the most training. So that's also something where you have to look at these automation ironies, how we describe them. But the question is how to overcome these barriers when implementing smart factories. And of course, as Jochen said before, clear focus on the customer. First, to understand who's the customer, maybe something outside, inside your organization, what is his need? And doing so, there were also new methods, design thinking, maybe also agile project management systems that should take place to better guide, to better control these processes. And when it comes to implementing new things in general, it's scientifically proven that if you integrate the ones that are affected by these changes in your organization, in technical changes in the production, implement them from the early beginning of the process. Implement them already when you start to think about, okay, we like to initiate change, because there are fears, there may be misunderstanding that you can cope with. And if you integrate all stakeholders in your processes, in your transformation change processes, at the end, the solutions at the end, maybe it's not the 100% best solution. I think Pareto is always good, but the acceptance of these solutions will be much more higher if you do it just like top-down finish. A top-down, bottom-up approach always came very good, you know, have these exchanges, listen, okay, what will happen when we do this? What do you think? What are your fears? And scope we see things, and doing so, I'm very much convinced will bring you to better results than doing not so.
Fantastic. And Clive, would you like to follow?
In terms of the barriers to overcome the smart factory, the big one for me, and one of the areas that we're working on right now, is data integrity. Mm-hmm. And when we look at things like people hacking computers, imagine the chaos that could be caused if you have a smart factory and somebody hacks the software in that factory. So being able to control that data and having data integrity and system integrity, to me, is probably the biggest barrier and the biggest concern I have for smart factories.
Fantastic. And Julianne, would you like to follow?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers that I'm seeing is really getting from experimentation pilots and smaller scale applications to actually a true smart factory transformation, and like let's say the scaling across like different assets in your footprint, in your manufacturing footprint. And that also has to do a lot with the very heterogeneous architecture, right? Usually you have a network of several factories. None of these factories look the same. They have different software solutions, they have different machinery. And it can be very hard to effectively and basically without a lot of changing to roll out use cases from one facility to another if you have this very heterogeneous environment. And then on the other hand, data integrity also from just the source data perspective, right? Like a lot of these systems, you can try to do AI, but if you put kind of this old principle of garbage in, garbage out, that's still very applicable. And manufacturing data has been neglected a lot of years, right? And nobody really worried about how accurate it is. Do we actually capture it completely and fully and accurately? So I think there's also a lot of barriers on that side to move to the more advanced use cases. You have to do a few of the cleanup work first and validation work to understand where you are today in that sense.
Fantastic. And finally, Jochen.
Actually, for me, it's not about the hardware, neither the machines nor the computers. It's about people, organization, and the uncertainties which come along with all these new technologies. And it's not about selling software, but understanding customer needs, which requires different languages in sales. and very much in line with Clive's statement. It's about trust. Where goes my data? Data integrity mentioned. Who owns it? Who looks at it? GDPR, Datenschutzgrundverordnung, more and more the question of data export compliance. Whoever had to deal with such, this turns out to be a nightmare, especially for typical German Mittelstand. When you ask them, and in our textile business, which is based on well-established long-term partnerships in all regions and any markets, almost everything is built on this trust. Whatever we can solve on the technology level, be it with AI, be it with machine connectivity, by all means, we have to keep this trust level. Once data integrity is infringed or hacked or damaged, the trust will be gone. And this will be one key element and key roadblock when we talk with customers all over the world. And of course, people and organizations.
Fantastic. And to conclude, because I know we're kind of running out of time a little bit, I wondered if you could explore some of the smart factory projects that you're all working on at the minute. Johan, would you like to begin?
Yeah, as mentioned, we now have smart factories running in several countries like Vietnam, Middle America, China, Turkey. And by the way, all of them are serviced and supervised remotely, actually. We have implemented several R&D projects and expect to continue the implementation of a smart factory combined with automation this year. But allow me a personal remark. If the Corona situation has changed anything, then one thing above all, and this is speed. Mm-hmm. We have been and have to be extremely focused during this time to do the right things, make decisions quickly, and implement them pragmatically. So far, we have managed to do this by and large, together with all those involved and in harmony with our suppliers and above all our customers. So we as Oerlikon Man-Made Fiber have become much more digital as well. Right now running more than 25 internal initiatives. And that means what is valid for all our customers, products and services, meanwhile applies very much the same to ourselves as the more and more smart factory.
Fantastic. And Clive?
Yeah, for us, it's looking at the next step and looking at how we provide maintenance into a smart factory, and we're looking at augmented reality for that maintenance activity, looking at the remote control of robots in hostile environments, the sort of things that Jochen was talking about previously, and if we can get remote control of robots in the hostile environment, but with integrated haptics feedback. So when the robot does something, we can sense the feel of what's happening there. So for us, that's a big step forward at the moment. And we're also looking at how do you apply smart factories to the construction industry, mm-hmm. Which has traditionally been very much artisan and rather than process driven, much more individual driven. And we're looking at how we can make that much more process driven, taking cost and time. And the best word to use, there's waste, but it's also the ambiguity out of the construction.
Fantastic. And Julianne?
So I'm currently working on a project around creating more visibility and traceability in supply chains and really understand where input's coming from, but also what's going on in the manufacturing and conversion process. And we're actually trying to develop a solution together with several not-for-profits and leading companies that will help, implement that a lot quicker to achieve resiliency, but then also sustainability and manufacturing, and really getting closer to the circular economy where you reuse more, recycle more, and have in general just less waste, which I think is also a topic that's becoming more and more important, and digital and smart factory can also be a key enabler for that, actually.
Great. And finally, Yves.
Yeah, main project in this field is here in Berlin, Germany. It's implementing a smart factory for garmenting. So we are looking at the whole process from cutting, nesting, sewing operation to the finished product. It probably will be bags and then also garments. And doing so, we are looking on, of course, on automation. So how can robots be useful in cutting, in sewing operation? How can assistance systems be useful also in the field of logistics? And at every process step in the factory, it's about quality, automated quality inspection. And if you then go a level higher, of course, the whole production planning system, it's connected to the whole process chain. So there is a fluent interaction of data. It's connected to an ERP system and our web shop where we do have the configurator. And at the end, we will produce lot size 1. So the customer will design the product. It will be produced in shortest time, not in a store, but in a factory environment in Germany. So we do have short transport routes back to the customer and do also have positive effects on sustainability. So that's the main project. It's progressing very well. And one learning out of this project is already that the general data regulation protection system, Datenschutzgrundverordnung, that this might be something, you know, if you can handle this in Europe, you won't have any problem in the rest of the world with data integrity. So that's something I think it's one learning out of this project already.
Fantastic. Well, as I said, that's all we have. Sorry. As I was saying, yeah, that's all we have time for. But I'd like to thank you all for joining me today. It's been a really insightful discussion, and I really look forward to seeing developments in this area in the future. And of course, thank you to everyone who has tuned in today to listen to our speakers. We'll continue to keep you up to date on developments from the ITA Virtual Trade Show. In the meantime, please do visit our main website, WTiN.com, for further news and intelligence from the textile and apparel industry, or visit vts.wtin.com for more roundtable discussions. Thanks again, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. Thanks to the audience.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much,
Stay
everyone.
healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.